Hi, I'm Russell from Classic Breakfast here on ABC Classic. Before we get going, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet across Australia today and pay my respects to elders past and present of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Look, thanks for being here. We're going to rehearse the classic choir today. It's going to be a bit different from a normal choir rehearsal in that we're doing this online. It's also going to be slightly different to a normal video conferencing call, the kind of thing you might have been doing with friends and relatives and colleagues during the pandemic and other times. We won't be able to hear one another when we do this, but that's fine. You don't need a microphone today. All you need to do is be able to watch this and have the music to hand, either on a device or if you printed it out, that's good as well. And then you'll be able to sing along to the Adelaide Chamber Singers and the Queensland Symphony Orchestra. Benjamin Northey, Maestro Benjamin Northey, will be here in just a moment to conduct the rehearsal. If you missed any of it, don't worry. We're recording this and it'll be available for you to watch again on the ABC Classic website anytime you like. So thanks again and enjoy the rehearsal.
Hello, it is so good to be with you for this, the very first classic choir rehearsal. And it's happening live all around the country. I'm Greta Bradman, and joining me, our intrepid conductor for this adventure ahead, Mr. Benjamin Northey. How's it going, sir?
I'm really good, Greta. I'm so excited about this. It's a beautiful piece that Deborah has written, and I can't wait to dig into it and start learning it, and we can all learn it together. I think it's probably the best way to do this.
It certainly is. It is such a beautiful, beautiful carol. Oh my goodness, we're so lucky to have had Deborah write this music for us. But I want to, before we start, just kind of ask you, when did you first sing in a choir? Were you, a kid, little kind of, maybe a boy soprano once upon a time?
I was indeed, never serious enough to be in the church choir, but I do remember our primary school musicals at school. Dressing up like a sailor was definitely one of those. And I can still remember in my boy soprano voice singing a line, I can do no more for the pots and the pans than I do for the galleys of the sea, the sea, than I do for the galleys of the sea. And it's one of my earliest musical memories, that and playing violin in the grade prep kind of string ensemble. But there's nothing better than singing with others, Greta, as you would well know. I just think it's one of the greatest things about music. And that's one of the best things about this project, is that in spite of the fact that we can't get together in big numbers, we can still do that. We can still have this experience of being connected through the wonders of technology.
It is, isn't it? And if you, wherever you are in your home, most likely, why don't you let us know where you are, what your surrounds are, and what you're looking forward to from this rehearsal and indeed from Classic Choir. It is such a very special opportunity for all of us to come together. I remember when I was a little girl singing in a pub down the South Australian coast in a little town called Port Elliot with my dad and my grandma. It was the first time that I remember singing in 3-part harmony. I was pretty young, I don't know, maybe sort of 5 or 6, singing You Are My Sunshine. So that's an early memory for me. But we are coming up to Christmas, and of course Christmas with You is a carol. How about, Benjamin Northey, we crack on first, if you'll permit us, with a carol that we all know and love. What do you reckon?
That's a good idea, because I think we've got to break the ice here a little bit. It's an odd kind of process of recording ourselves by ourselves. Normally, if you're singing in a choir, you can kind of blend in with everybody else and be part of the big end result. So I'm sure a lot of people will probably find that a little bit intimidating. So it's good just to have a good old sing. Don't worry so much, if you're worried about what it sounds like. Just get into the swing of singing a Christmas carol again. It's been a while. We need them this year.
Absolutely. And so if you have any suggestions as to what popular Christmas carol we should crack on with now, that would be great. And while some of those suggestions come in, I have a suggestion as to a bit of a warm-up If you've not sort of had a chance to warm up the voice, this is one that I love to do, actually, like in the car on the way to rehearsal. And the very first warm up that I love to do with choirs, to really not only get the vocal folds kind of, starting to get a bit limber and warmed up, but also just activate that core, which is so important, particularly for the long lines, Ben, that you're going to be taking us through today. And that is just a really simple, it's a siren on a lip trill. So, Ben, I'm hoping you'll join me here. I would pay good money to hear you lip trill, and now I don't have to.
Feeling very out of my depth at this point, Greta, but I shall follow your lead.
Excellent. Okay, let's go. So just, don't be shy. Just a bit of a... And you can imagine that in a choir rehearsal where you have just, I don't know, a couple of dozen, or many more in the case of a chorus, like the MSO chorus, for instance, Ben. It's quite something to behold.
Quite a sound, I can imagine.
It is. So we've had lots of suggestions coming in. Thank you for what we should sing as a popular carol before we crack on with Christmas with You. And we have the music. We've found the music for O Come All Ye Faithful. So how about we have a sing through a few verses, 1 and 3. So See How the Shepherds, and 4, which has the descant, if you know it. Sing it loud and proud. Ben, are you happy to conduct and maybe give us a starting note?
Yes, I can. So it's in G major. Oh, come. That's where we can say. I think we've got 7 clicks before we start.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of ages. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. See how the shepherds summoned to his cradle, leaving their flocks drawn nigh with glory filled. We too will thither bend our joyful footsteps. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exultation. Sing, all ye citizens of heaven. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord.
Oh, that was so much fun.
Doesn't
Ben
it bring
Northey.
back the feeling of what it's like to sing a carol together in a big group, Greta? It's just amazing that kind of spine-tingling feeling, that we haven't probably experienced for so long, and especially people who sing in choirs who haven't had the chance to do that this year. It's just, it's a reminder of what we've been missing, isn't it?
Yeah, I know that I've really missed this. That's for sure. Well, Ben Northey, we are all nice and warmed up now.
Yes.
So how about we take it away? I'll hand over to you to lead us through a rehearsal of Christmas with You.
Great. Well, I'm very, very excited to be starting this journey together with all of you. We're going to be learning a brand new piece of music, Christmas with You, beautiful piece of music written by Deborah Cheetham, one of our great Australian composers. And I think the best way to start, Greta, is to work out the things that are going to unify our performance, because that's probably going to be the hardest thing with this is, learning our individual parts, which we can do. You've got, these rehearsals that we're doing online. You've also got access to recordings with your individual parts that you can listen to. But that's probably the most difficult thing about doing this by yourselves and submitting the recording, is that we all have to be on the same page with certain things that'll help us with our ensemble. Now, you don't necessarily have to be able to read music to do this. You could learn the piece by ear, by listening to the recording. It's an advantage, of course, to be able to read music, but all of the things that I'm talking about will help us sing together and make sure that it's a really unified vocal performance that we have. So I suppose the first thing, Greta, is identifying your voice type, because this piece of music is in 4 parts, isn't it? Now, I have you firmly in the soprano category. Is that correct?
That is correct. I have sung, I love singing alto, but
Yep.
I am singing the soprano line in Christmas with You.
And for those people who are wondering perhaps what voice type they actually are, I mean, there are some sort of very loose ranges that sort of put you in a certain category, and often it's got to do with your speaking voice too, doesn't it, Greta? I mean, the way that you would speak. You can hear I'm kind of speaking in this pitch, do, there we go, that's an A, right? And if I go down from there, da, 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 I can almost sing a low C. And that puts me in the bass category. The bottom of the bass range is about an E. La. And I might be able to sing the octave higher. La. And if I'm really on a good day, I could potentially sing the octave higher than that. La. No, I can't. I'm not even going to try. But I'm definitely a bass. And people who can go into a slightly higher range than that, in a male voice, would perhaps be singing from about a C, up to an A, perhaps. Altos are generally from an F below middle C up to a D, and often it's just sit at a piano and just see how far you can sing up the scale. So, about F to a D for altos and sopranos. Well, I mean, the sky's the limit, really. Maybe starting on middle C and 2 octaves higher if you're very, very fortunate. You could sing a top C, or sometimes even a G. I've got guinea pigs in the room, Greta. Did I mention that? They actually squeak to a G. That's their note. And
what are their names?
I've asked. They're loosely called Wasabi and Tadashi, although my nickname for one of them is Colonel Tufty Bum. Colonel
Right,
Tufty Bum's
and is
been
Colonel
very...
Tufty Bum, what are we talking, soprano, tenor?
I would call them hyper sopranos. Hyper sopranos. So they may join in. I've asked them to be quiet. They're behaving very well at the moment. But if I do yell out, Colonel Tufty Bum, I'm not talking to anyone except my guinea pigs. So just to let
So
you
he's
know.
not talking to us. Okay.
So back to the piece, Christmas with You. How do we go about learning a piece like this? Now, Greta, I've kind of said, the things that unify us are probably where we should start. So apart from the notes of our individual lines and choosing our voice type, what other things do you look for in a score when you're first learning a choral score like this?
Well, the first things that I look for are phrases, so the length of phrases, and just thinking about breathing, I suppose, and the end consonants. And so breathing, consonants would be the sort of the top 2. And the awesome thing about having the music to listen to and the version that we have as a foundation for our interpretation is that we can use that as a guide. But I'm really hoping, Ben, that you can provide a bit of insight into, how do we So I guess my first question to you would be around breathing. There are a lot of really quite long phrases.
That's true.
That, in listening to the recording, we can hear that it starts and then it just keeps on going and going and going, and then the phrase finishes. And there's no kind of discernible breathing in there. So what should we do?
Well, look, we can give suggestions as to when to breathe. A lot of times it's obvious on the sheet music when there's a rest, but often it's not. The words are just written, the notes are just written to go through. Choirs are notorious for snatching breaths, giving the illusion of long phrases. What we tell you today is not an essential, you must breathe here kind of edict from Greta and I. It's a suggestion
Absolutely.
of how we can best unify. There are some moments where we should all take a breath together, and there are others where if you need a breath, please take one. Because breathing's very important. You don't want to be asphyxiating while you're singing this piece of music. But the most important thing is, I suppose, having a plan and knowing where you're trying to get to at the end of phrases. So let's have a look at the sheet music. I've got the sheet music in front of me on paper, very old-fashioned way of doing it around here at the Ben Northey household. But if we're looking at bar 12 on the first page, the sopranos start us off. They start off on an A, and they play this line. Now, the end of that word night at the end, if we put our T of night in many different places, that is the kind of thing that will make the performance sound slightly ragged, and you'll get a lot of t-t-t-t kind of overlapping each other. So it's important to pay attention to where you place the end of the word night, and it goes on the third beat of that bar. And what I would do is just write a T right on the third beat to remind you to sing the word night right through to the third beat of that bar, and then a nice soft T. It doesn't have to be completely pedantic and aggressive, as you sometimes hear in choral performances, but just placed in the right spot. The next
So
phrase,
Ben, should we have a little practice of that? Would you mind if we just had a quick whirl through this first phrase for the sake of the night?
Absolutely.
And maybe the altos, tenors, and basses can join us.
Just sing the
unison,
same
but
thing. Yeah,
a register that's comfortable for them.
No worries. All right. Well, I'll count it in. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can you find your way home Christmas night?
There we are. And then it's unified, okay? And the other things to look at here are the way that Deborah's instructed us to sing. Sung legato and with great feeling throughout. And that's important in terms of the way that we join the words together, particularly the vowels, to get a really supported vocal line all the way through. And then over the page, we've got at bar 16, if we're looking again at the soprano line, this is a classic example of a phrase. It's, one sentence, if you like. And the soprano line starts on a D and goes like this. And then we have a crotchet rest, which is where we breathe. Now, that's an easier one. But the important thing is that the entire choir breathes in the same place there. So when you're singing the word you, you're counting in your mind and listening to the music, trying to count through to that crotchet rest and releasing the sound beautifully on that crotchet rest. And it's
the
those
awesome
things
thing
that
there,
help us.
Ben, is with that phrase, would you say that in bar 16, 17, 18, 19, at the end of you, because it doesn't have a hard consonant, it's not so essential to come off altogether. So if you do need a little bit of extra time to breathe at that point, because, then you've got like a D to C sharp leap if you're a soprano, it shines. So if you need a bit of an extra, you can come off a little early, would you say, on that U? And it doesn't matter so much as like
those
a T,
things
which
aren't as noticeable as hard consonants when they're all done by many, many voices together. So that's a good example of a spot where you can, if you need to, take an early breath. Absolutely. And really, I don't intend to go through the entire score like this, but it gives you an indication of the kind of things that we would be looking for if we're learning this. And when you go through with the recording, either with all of the voice types together or just your own voice type, because that recording is going to be very useful to you, I think, by listening to the choir performance of just the soprano, the alto, the tenor, or the bass parts with the orchestra, you can then identify where they are finishing their words. For example, bar 21, the word light, the T of light comes on the third beat. In bar 23, the word heart, the T comes on the third beat for those as well. It's not always for every part. You can see the tenors have slightly different lines as well. But listen closely to the way that the choirs are doing that and mark them in the score in a pencil. And so that's essentially what I would start with, is like marking in where the consonants are at the ends of words and your breathing points. And Greta, what do we do in the rests? I mean, this is important too, because you've got your singing face. What's your resting face?
Yeah, alert but not alarmed, Ben. Alert but not alarmed. No, I think one of the things that I would say in this process in particular, because when you are literally surrounded by a group of other humans, you don't have such a sense of being watched the way that, we are here by ourselves in our homes recording these. And, and I would say to everyone that even though we are separate when we're doing our rehearsals and, when we're recording for classic choir, it's all going to be put together in the end so that we are going to be surrounded by even, this uber choir, so many faces. Yeah. So I think to remember that, for starters, we're not going to stand out in that sense, where this is a chance to be all together, not to stand out. And that's one of the awesome things about choral singing, that the sum of the parts is so much greater than the individual parts. But alongside that, I'd say just listen to the music and enjoy it, and that's enough. No matter what happens, if you sort of sway with the music or if you're still, it doesn't matter. There's kind of no right or wrong. Would you say? I mean, I think we all have a face. Mine, I think, is I'm so used to being a soloist these days that it's kind of a real channeling of the music, trying to just really channel the spirit of the music, whatever is going on. But how about you, Ben? Do you have a
I think you're right.
Singing face?
Well, I'm resting my face is resting all the time. And the thing is, I think the look of concentration is also the same look as absolute boredom. So you have to be careful when you're concentrating really hard that you're not sort of frozen in a kind of counting, slightly terrified, face. But just be natural, be yourselves. It doesn't really matter, is the truth. It's just to be aware that you're still in the moment. I think that's probably, as you said, the key idea. You'll see some people counting, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and verbalizing the counting and things like that. And that's fine.
Do I do a similar thing. Sometimes when I count, if I'm holding my choral folder, I'll lift my hand. If you were to zoom in on my fingers, you'd see them just kind of doing that. Like I'm counting with my... I still count. And yeah, it can be really helpful when you're, like if you're in this piece, which is sort of like two big beats in a bar, I guess.
Yes.
So I'm still kind of going 1, 2, 1, 2 on the back of my music folder. So you can count in lots of different ways, and there's kind of, to your point, there's no right or
It's
wrong.
whatever helps you. It's really whatever helps you. And to remember, we're here to enjoy, to sing together and to make a good sound. Okay, so anyway, enough talking. Let's get back to some singing, Greta. So if I take us through perhaps verse 1 as just an example, we'll start with the sopranos in verse 1. So I'll count 2 beats in, and that's our starting note there. 1 and...
Can you find your way home Christmas night?
2, 1, off, and...
There is a star to guide you. It shines with a light I hold in my heart. Oh, can you find your way home Christmas night?
Off. Okay, so that's our soprano line. Nobody sings the first phrase except for the soprano, so we'll start at bar 16 for altos now. We're starting on our D, nice and warmly. I'll give 2 beats in. Ready, and 1.
There is a star to guide you. It shines with a light I hold in my heart. Oh, can you find your way
okay? And tenors, you start at exactly the same place. You're starting on a D as well. Ready, and 1.
There is a star to guide you. It shines with the light I hold in my heart. Oh, can you find your way home Christmas night?
Off, and finally basses. Now you're starting on a B. This is my section, my people, the basses. You ready? Here we go. 2 beats in. Ready, and 1.
There is a star to guide you. It shines with the light I hold in my heart. Oh, can you find your way home Christmas night?
That's all of the individual parts. What do you say, Greta? Shall we put it together?
Yes, this is great.
All right. I suppose the only other thing is just the way that it starts, to listen for. I think there's a little run in I think it's the violins or the woodwinds, I can't remember, but this, and that leads us into the soprano entry, the bar before. Just have a listen for that. So let's run the recording and have a sing, shall we?
Can I say one thing, Ben? With that,
Yeah.
what's really super helpful is to breathe. So with the sopranos, particularly because we're straight in with that k, we can't afford to
Yes.
wait for our breath. So really think about preparing through da 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 can, so that you're all ready. Can you find your way home Christmas night? There is a star to guide you. It shines with the light I hold in my heart. Oh, can you find your way home Christmas night?
There it is.
Oh, terrific. One thing I really noticed there, Ben, and you kind of emphasised it with your conducting too, is that there is a little bit of a lean on the word guide. There is a star
Yes.
to guide you. Is that something that that you'd like us to just sort of follow you and just be aware of, your conducting? Tell us a little bit about
I
that.
think,
How did you
look,
bring this
ideally,
about?
yes, I love it. I love it when people follow my conducting, Greta. It's always fills
It
me
happens
with
so
great warmth.
rarely.
Exactly. Let's make it a Christmas gift to the maestro. So you're absolutely right. The way that is shaped is to the word guide, and I try and put that into my gestures as well. So yes, there's a video of me conducting to practice along to as well, and so see if you can match my gestures to get those kinds of phrase shapes. That would be wonderful. Make me very happy.
Excellent. And Maestro, how are you feeling about our performance just then? Anything to work on or kind of take note of?
I think it's just sounding beautiful, and it's such a beautiful song that all of these sort of smaller details we're talking about are just in the service of finding the emotional impact of the piece, the beautiful Christmas atmosphere, all of the memories that come up for us about Christmas time, particularly this year, after having all been through a difficult year. That's what our goal is. Our goal is not to sing all of the notes and finish them together and have our T's in the right place. Our goal is to give the listener that magical Christmas feeling. And so just, keep in that emotional zone as much as possible when you're singing these as well. But I think we're off to a great start, Greta.
Would you mind, do we have time to do another section?
Oh, look, the guinea pigs are behaving themselves so well. I feel like we've got more time up our sleeves before things get crazy in the guinea pig cage there. So let's move on. I'll leave verse 2 to everybody to learn. But let's look at the chorus, what we're calling the chorus, which is bar 46. We've been apart for so long now. So this starts for the sopranos on the second beat of bar 46. And I'm conducting in 2 beats in a bar, so I'm always giving 1, 2, 1.
We've been apart for so long. This year And suddenly the summer days are here, bringing Christmas.
Okay, and then we're at the key change. So that bar before letter B, bar 57, is a modulation, and we will get to that. Don't be put off if that all of a sudden sounds completely out of the key that we've been singing in, but we shall put that together. So that's the soprano line. Let's have a look at the alto part now. So this is back at bar 46. Ready, and 1.
We've been apart for so long now.
And 1.
This year has come and gone somehow, and suddenly the summer days are here, bringing Christmas.
And then we're into E flat major. All right, so now let's have a look at the tenors back at bar 46, starting on a D. Ready, and 1.
We've been apart for so long now.
And 1.
This year has come and gone somehow, and suddenly the summer days are here, bringing Christmas.
That's a tough line there, that jump. Always the 7th. We'll get to that. Doesn't have to be perfect for now. And finally, the basses, bar 46, starting on a D. Ready, and a 1. Flat major. So that's all of the parts of the chorus. What do you think, Greta? Should we have a sing and try and put it all together?
Oh, that was sensational. Yes, please.
All right. Thanks to everybody for singing along and learning this all together. I'm learning it too. I'm still putting it all together in my mind, and I can't wait to hear how all of these parts come together. So I think we get a bar in. It might sort of catch us by surprise a bit at the beginning because we've got a little excerpt here, but I'll try and give an upbeat for us so that we can take a breath.
On Christmas Day, we've been apart for so long now. This year has come and gone somehow, and suddenly the summer days are here, bringing Christmas. So you'll find your way home Christmas Day.
It's getting exciting now, isn't it, really? It's going to be great to put all of this together.
Oh, so great. It's really starting to feel real. Hey, Ben, how would you feel about a bell through the entire... I know that we haven't, spent time on that modulation. We haven't been right through to the end. But before we finish rehearsal 1, how about it?
Let's do it. It's the only way to learn. Jump into the deep end. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and just see what happens, because we need to find out where the points are that we need to focus on and to learn. So this will help us with that. But don't be overwhelmed if it's all, too hard the second half. You'll work it out bit by bit and it'll come to you. Okay, so let's have a go and see where we're at.
Can you find your way home Christmas now?
There we go. World premiere rehearsal done, Greta. How exciting.
It's a classic in the making, I think.
It's a classic. It's an absolute classic. And we're doing the world premiere.
Speaking of which, I wanted to ask you, Ben, before we finish up, who have you enlisted to be in the beside your guinea pigs? Who else? Which humans have you enlisted to be part
Colonel
of Classic
Tufty
Choir?
Bum will feature. Colonel Tufty Bum will feature prominently. I've got my children, Eva and Leo, who are 8 and 6. Eva's very good. I think she's going to be good at this. She's a good harmonizer already. Leo, he'll do his best, and I reckon he'll be okay with possibly the verses. Might struggle with the key change. My wife Joanne's got a voice like an angel, so she'll be in. And I'm going to try and get Eddie Perfect, the singer, songwriter, comedian, on board with this as well. He's a good friend, and I think this is the kind of thing he'd love to do. He loves singing choirs. That's how he grew up. And his dad sings in the MSO chorus, or did for many years, and so there's a lot of people out there who love singing choirs. He's one of them. I'm going to get him involved.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes, I'm really excited because along with my sons, Jude and Casper, so Jude's 13, his voice is breaking actually, but he's giving it a whirl. So, it's going to be a little bit, and he's cool with that. And I think it's great that he's cool with that. But the person I'm really excited to have singing is my husband, Didier. He doesn't read music at all. He's never really sung, not even in the shower. He loves it. And he's both terrified but incredibly excited. I've taken him through. I've shown him everything on the website, so abc.net.au/classic, and then click on classic choirs, and he's gone through it all, and he says, actually it looks really quite cool. It doesn't look as scary. So it's
That's
maybe
so wonderful.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to show that this is really for everyone, whether you're a seasoned chorister or a complete newbie. This is for you. This is your
you're right.
classic choir.
And the other thing is, you mentioned being terrified and excited. That's exactly what you're meant to be. That's what we are all the time when we do these things. And, that is the perfect combination. If you're feeling like it's slightly out of your depth, jump in anyway. This is your chance. Don't hold back. Be brave. These opportunities don't come up all the time. So we'll all be in it together.
Ben Northey, you're back with another rehearsal tomorrow with Ed. Thank you so much for today, and I'm really looking forward to being a participant on the other side for that rehearsal. Catch you then.
I'll catch you soon, Greta. Thanks very much for today, and thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody.